Welcome to the Warp. I'm Jack Rita with Future Pastimes. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all of the Mayfair edition of Cosmic Encounter aliens that have made their way into the Fantasy Flight edition. What we have right now is basically a baker's dozen of aliens. Not every alien that was exclusive to the Mayfair edition has made their way into the Fantasy Flight version. Some of the aliens that didn't make it in there are aliens that I don't miss. I'm not anxious to ever see them make their way in there. I know not everybody feels the same. There are certainly some completists out there that want all of them to somehow show up into the game. But it's not a super high priority for the original designers of Cosmic Encounter. We've gotten all of their original aliens in one form or another, even if it's just name only. But there are some good Mayfair aliens that I am glad that have made it in there. And so we're going to cover all of those aliens right now, starting with Cavalry. So Cavalry is a really good, straightforward design. You're basically, as an ally, you're able to play an encounter card, which normally the allies don't get to play encounter cards. So if you play an attack card, then it's going to be added to your side's total if the main player on your side also reveals an attack card. But if the main player on your side reveals a negotiate card and you also, as Cavalry, reveal a negotiate card, you will get compensation as well. So Cavalry is a pretty good alien. It's great to bring in as an ally, and it's a good alien for hand management because you're able to keep playing those cards. You don't have to play a card as an ally, but most of the time you're going to, and you'll definitely play one of your lower cards when you're an ally, and just it's like having an extra reinforcement, although it's an attack card. Our next alien is in the base set for Fantasy Flights Edition, and is Chosen. Now, this version of Chosen has been beefed up quite a bit from the original Mayfair one. The original version of the Mayfair was after you revealed your encounter card and you're looking at the totals of how things are going, you can draw the top card of the deck, and if it's a better card, you can switch to that one. The odds of that happening, though, were very low. If you got really lucky, it was very exciting, but most of the time you're like, oh, it's a flare, so whatever, it can't do anything. Or it's a lower card. It's just not going to help out. So this one is a little bit more powerful. Some think it's maybe too powerful of an upgrade. You can decide. Power of Divine Intervention as a main player. After revealing your encounter cards, you may use this power to pray for Divine Intervention once per counter. To do so, draw 3 cards from the deck. If none are encounter cards, discard them and there's no further effect. So drawing the 3 cards increases your chances of getting to something that's pretty good. But if you draw any encounter cards, you may choose one of the drawn encounter cards to replace your revealed one, which is then discarded. If you have revealed an attack card and you choose another attack card for Divine Intervention, the new card may either replace or add its value to the value of your revealed attack card of your choice. All the cards drawn are then discarded. So getting to add a card to an attack card, pretty powerful. Certainly more powerful than replacing a 10 with a 12. If you're adding a 12 to the 10, that's a pretty big deal. So I think it's probably fine. You are gambling that, those three cards on the top of the deck are going to help you out. But 3 cards, pretty decent odds, especially if you're just looking to get another attack card to add in. It kind of makes you your own Cavalry. But you're rolling the dice. It might not work out, but it's an optional alien. So if you don't need it to do anything, you don't have to worry about it. It's Chosen, pretty good. Force is from Cosmic Odyssey. What's interesting, though, is that Force is actually an old Eon alien, but the effect is actually borrowed from an exclusive Mayfair alien in this Fantasy Flight version. So the original Force had the power to be with, and it was kind of ambiguous. You were like, oh, I'm going to help you out. There was lucre involved. It got very complicated. It was one of those aliens that players didn't really know what to do with or how to really take advantage of it. Really creative players were like, Force is great. But not everybody was particularly creative and put on the spot and like, oh, I don't know what to do with this alien. And other people were telling them what to do. And then it just became like, why do I even bother doing it? So Mayfair version tried to beef it up a little bit, but again, it was one of those aliens that just didn't quite click with a lot of people. And that is why with the version that we put into Cosmic Odyssey, it has a very distinct and clear effect. It's in the spirit of the original Force, but this effect is actually borrowed from an alien called Busybody. I tried to get a little Busybody shout out into the history, but it got yanked at the last minute, so that didn't make it in there. But this one, it's the power to interlope. If you're not a main player or ally, after the encounter cards are selected but before they're revealed, you may use this power to choose a main player and look at their played encounter card. And then you may swap that card with one from your hand, which that player may look at if they wish. If you swapped cards and that player wins the encounter or makes a deal, then you, as the Force, gain 3 rewards. If that player loses the encounter or fails to make a deal, then the Force has to send 2 of their ships from their colonies to the warp, and the player that they swapped with themselves gains 1 reward. And the gaining the 1 reward there, that little bit at the very end, was added to this version of Force. That was not an original effect for Busybody, but he was a pretty good alien. I always liked Busybody. I thought it was one of the better aliens, and it just never kept showing up in the Fantasy Flight Edition. But when we were looking at our priority was to get all of the original Eon aliens in, which Force is one of those. So in order to solve both issues, I just used the Busybody effect, which seemed to work out. So the playtesters liked it. The original designers were happy with it. And there you have it. Our next alien from Cosmic Alliance is Gorgon. And Gorgon's an interesting alien from Mayfair. I was glad to see this included in the Fantasy Flight Edition just because it's a fairly unique effect for an alien. It's the power to petrify. So when another player attempts to move any ships from one or more of your home planets or that are coexisting on any planet with your ships, use this power. That player cannot move those ships unless it was for an effect that would let they have to send ships to the warp. That's the only way that they can move those ships. Your own ships are never sent to the warp as a result of your power. You don't lose your power for having too few colonies. A nice little extra there. So you're basically trapping players. So once they get a colony in your system, those ships are stuck there. So it's a really unique effect. It's fairly passive, but I think it's interesting and unique, so that's one of the reasons why I'm happy to see it in there. Our next alien that was a Mayfair exclusive from Cosmic Conflict is Industrialist, and this has had an interesting history as well. It originally showed up, I believe, in an Encounter magazine, and the effect from that version that was originally published was changed a little bit in the Mayfair edition. And then it was changed a little bit again in the Fantasy Flight Edition when Kevin Wilson implemented it into the Fantasy Flight game. So you have the power to build as a main player after you lose an encounter in which you have revealed an attack card. Your opponent must either allow you to win the encounter instead of losing, or else allow you to place your attack card face up on this sheet, adding it to a stack. Your stack is not part of your hand, cannot be drawn from other players, or affected by other powers. As a main player, after you reveal an attack card, use this power to either add or subtract the total of all of the face-up attack cards in your stack to your side's total. For instance, if you have an attack 8 and a 12 on the sheet, you will add 20 to your side's total. So that is a very powerful effect. It does require you to lose some encounters in order to start building it up, but once you start building it up, you become really powerful because you notice there's nothing in there about your stack going away. It doesn't go away. It just keeps getting bigger as you lose. But once you get to a certain threshold, you're probably going to stop losing. So that's some of the differences to the original or previous versions of Industrial. So this is a very powerful alien. It's one that certainly other players have some agency over, letting you grow that stack and just let you win the encounter. Also, probably not. I think most of the people would be like, you know what? No, you're going to lose that encounter because you just win the next one. Don't win on my turn. So that's Industrial. It's very powerful alien. In the base game, we have another Mayfair alien, and that is Mirror. And Mirror is an interesting alien. Some people think it's one of the dumb math aliens. I don't really subscribe to that. I think it's a pretty clever effect. Power of reversal. As a main player, after encounter cards are selected, but before they're revealed, you may use this power to call for a reversal. This changes the value of any attack cards that are revealed in the encounter by reversing their digits. So, for example, if you revealed a 15, the reverse digits would then make it a 51. A 20 would become a 2, an 8 would become an 80. And because this was a base set alien, Kevin Wilson was very smart to ensure that the attack cards all had both digits on there. So in previous versions of the game, the attack 8 was just an 8. There was no 0-8. And this just helps people out. They're like, oh, it's hard for some people to envision. There's a 0 in front of that 8. What do I do? What do I do with the 7? Is it still just a 7? So putting those zeros in front of the single-digit numbers helps everybody out. It's win-win. So that was a good addition. I think Mirror is a very interesting alien. It's it's a lot like it's a different riff on Sorcerer in some ways. Are you going to do it? Aren't you going to do it? You get that little mind game, and I think a lot of people like the mind game aliens. I certainly do. So I think Mirror is a pretty good one to have in there. Our next one from Cosmic Dominion is Pentaform. Pentaform was always one of my favorite aliens in the Mayfair edition. The way that we implemented in Cosmic Dominion is not the way that we played it when I played it in the Mayfair edition, but it's more or less still works the same way. So you're going to draw 5 flares during game setup from the flare deck and arrange the matching alien powers in front of you as life stages in the order of your choosing. If any of them have game setup, you're going to get rid of them. You'll remove the 5 flares from the game that correspond to your life stages. So you have the power to evolve. You use both your Pentaform power and the whatever life stage it is underneath. So you're using Pentaform as a marker. Whenever you gain a foreign colony, use this power to move your Pentaform sheet 1 to the right, so to the next life stage. So which alien you get to control as Pentaform out of the 5 that you've drawn at the beginning of the game will change depending on the number of foreign colonies that you have. The way that we usually played it back when we were playing in the Mayfair edition was you made a stack of them, which you did secretly. So the other players didn't know what your life stages were going to be. You just had whatever the current one, which is your I have 0 foreign colonies life stage. That was your first one. And they didn't know what was coming up later on. So I just enjoyed that more in my Tabletop Simulator Edition version of Pentaform. That's how it's done. Kind of re-implemented it back to the way that I like to do Pentaform. But it's a good alien. It's an interesting alien. I like the meta aliens quite a bit. Those are all the aliens that make use of other aliens in some way or another. In Cosmic Odyssey, we added Phantom, which was a pretty good Mayfair alien. We made the Phantom for the Fantasy Flight Edition more powerful. So the way it works is a game setup, you're going to place one of your ships from each of your planets on the sheet. You have the power to materialize. So as a main player, after encounter cards are revealed, you can use this power to add 2 to your encounter total for each ship on this sheet. Your ships in the encounter do not add to the encounter total at all, but they do count for compensation and for rewards normally. And when your ships would return to colonies, you may place one or more of them onto the sheet instead of onto colonies. And when you need to move ships from colonies, they can come from the sheet. So the original Phantom, you still started the same way. You had the 5 ships on the sheet, but you're only adding 1 for each ship on there. And you also added your ships normally. So I thought it would be more interesting to buff up the ships on the sheet. And then counter that a little bit with the ships in the encounter don't count at all. But you could be like, I'm just going to send in the 1 ship, but I've got 6 ships on my sheet, so I'm actually got a 12, which is much better than the 1. So I think Phantom is a much more interesting power. It's pretty powerful. You do have to manage your ships wisely because at some point you're going to be running out of ships. If you've got some in the warp and a bunch on your sheet, you still need to have ships to go into the encounters to get onto the planets to get your colonies. So I think it's fun and it's interesting to try to maneuver all of that. All right, in the base set, we have another really good Mayfair alien, and that's Reserve, a very clever idea that was really only possible because Mayfair introduced reinforcements to Cosmic Encounter. They didn't exist in the previous edition of Cosmic, and so Reserve takes advantage of that new element to the game. So it's power to reinforce. When you're a main player or an ally, after encounter cards are revealed, you can use this power to play one or more attack cards that are valued 6 or lower from your hand as if they were reinforcements. And that includes negative attack cards, which you can play on the other side. And so, because that is less than 6. And then you can also play a reinforcement card from your hand to cancel someone else's reinforcement. You can play a negotiate card to cancel reinforcement. So that's a pretty useful alien. I think Reserve has always been pretty strong. That's why it showed up in the base game. It was just really good, kind of a no-brainer. Reinforcements are a good addition to Cosmic Encounter. Gives the allies something a little more they can do. It makes some of those close encounters a little more tense because suddenly your fortunes can be reversed by a +2 that somebody has in their hand. Also in the base game, another pretty good Mayfair alien, and that is Spiff. So Spiff has the power to crash land as the offense when you lose an encounter. If both players revealed attack cards and your total was 10 or more, less than the defenses, then you use your power and one of your ships that would have gone to the warp actually gets to crash land on the planet and establish a colony. So this, again, you have another interesting mind game. Do you, as Spiff, go ahead and play a really low attack card and figure, all right, I probably can't win this, but I can still get a colony? And do the other players try to play kind of a mid-range card thinking, I don't want to give you the colony, I still want to win, and maybe Spiff is counting on that, so they're going to play their own mid-range card and win the encounter normally. Spiff sometimes has trouble getting allies on the offense because people are like, are you just going to spiff us? Is that what's going to happen? You're just going to play your attack 4 and hope that you've lost by a lot. So it has its trade-offs, but I think it's a pretty interesting concept, so it's good to have in there. Cosmic Alliance brought us Sting, and Sting's a pretty good alien. It's one of those that's it's not exactly like Vacuum, but it feels like it's in the same family tree. Power to substitute. Each time you lose ships to the warp, you use this power to designate another player to substitute half of the ships lost instead. And this is a slight change from the original Mayfair version of Sting, but it's pretty decent. Return half of your lost ships, rounded down to your colonies. Then your substitute makes up for the saved ships by choosing an equal number of their own ships to lose to the warp. That player may then draw 1 card from your hand for each ship that they lost. And if you have too few cards, they can draw the rest from the deck. So it's really not that bad. It's actually in some ways better than Vacuum for the other players. But you don't have to lose as many ships, so you can risk more. So that's the good thing, is you can say, yeah, I'm going to attack with 4, I'm going to ally with 4, because I know if I'm going to lose, I'm really only going to lose 2 of them, and I can make somebody else lose the other 2, but you are going to lose some cards. Sometimes that's good too, if you're like, have a handful of garbage, or it's mostly garbage, you're like, go ahead, take the cards. So, it's pretty good. It's not one of my favorite ones, but I don't mind having it in Cosmic Encounter. I like having it in there. All right, our next one, Cosmic Incursion, brought us Symbiote. For this one, you need to have an extra set of ships, because Symbiote basically has twice as many ships as normal. So you have 40 ships in a normal game. There's no other thing. So the original Symbiote had a little bit more going on, where one color was the ships that only those ships counted for foreign colonies. So you had to maintain a mix of those. I'm not sure why this was changed. I guess just to make it easier. This is a rare alien that has no use. There's nothing to zap. Power cannot be zapped, lost, stolen, or copied through any means. So there's no use. You're not like, I'm using my alien power to have 20 more ships. It's always on. You can't turn it off. So there's plenty of reasons having an extra 20 ships would be great. Certainly in a game with evolutions, no big deal. Technology, yeah, whatever, bring it on. You're not too worried about aliens like Shadow zapping your ships, or Bully, or Hate. You got a lot of ships. You can always send 4 ships into the encounter and have 4 ships on your foreign colonies, because there's plenty more. You get plenty more where that came from. So Symbiote, pretty decent aliens. Fun to have them in there. I've got a lot of extra ships and other player colors. So even in an 8-player game, somebody can be Symbiote. And then finally, we've got Wormhole. And technically, Wormhole is not a Mayfair alien. And I don't think that when Jay was designing this or bringing Wormhole into Cosmic Storm, that he had any awareness that it's very similar to an alien in the Mayfair edition called Ghost. So the way this works, you have the power to translocate as the offense or an ally. When committing ships to the encounter, you may use this power to commit your ships from the warp, in addition to your colonies. And as a main player, whenever one of your allies commits ships to the encounter, you may use this power to allow that ally to commit their ships from the warp in addition to colonies. This does not allow you to exceed the normal limit of ships for the encounter. So Ghost, pretty much the same thing. The thing with Ghost was that you could just bring in ships of another player and add them to your side without inviting them, as long as they weren't already on the other side of the encounter. So, but Wormhole, at the end of the day, it's basically the same thing. You're allying or you're committing with your ships from the warp. So I included it in there because it kind of feels like it should be included in there. So that's it for this list, unless I have somehow missed one. But those are the Mayfair aliens that are now in Fantasy Flight Edition of Cosmic Encounter. If there's a Mayfair alien that you really think ought to be in Cosmic Encounter, let me know in the comments. Tell me what that alien is and make your case. Why do you think that is a good alien? I know some people are like, oh, why? When is Pavlov or Serpent going to be in there, or Berserker? So these are aliens that I've never been particularly fond of, but I'm sure would be happy to hear why it's your favorite alien and you think it should be in there. And yeah, it's certainly, and there's no guarantee it ever will be. But I certainly want to hear, are you glad they're in there? Are there some aliens who are like, I don't know why. Why did you include that one in there? It's terrible. We want to hear that as well, of course, and why. That's it for this version of The Warp. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.